Here's one of those profiles that I moderate that people don't know about because they don't go searching for such things because they're not concerned with changing things for the better. They have their heads up their asses, etc., etc. So I'm responding to, you need to vanquish the lobby system. And of course, CIA. And it's really well put by Pumpkin Society 5902. Because that kid 3 hours ago was thinking for himself, herself, whoever the fuck this is. The kid above this says, we need to vote out every politician who put their name on these acts. And that kid couldn't capitalize the sentence, let alone punctuate it. If a life depended on it. So bear with me. I'm probably going to tweak this video and then we'll come back to what I'm doing. Hopefully this is where we return to my bullshit, which technically would help you if you pulled your head out of your ass. As it reads, far more to it. And that's poorly worded on my behalf, and I know it. Far more to it, and you would realize as much if you didn't confuse entertainment with research. For example, I doubt you know this, but after I tell you, you'll be familiar with it, so there's no way to prove, it should probably say something along those lines, to prove whether or not you do or didn't, you did or you did not know. The CIA is modeled after a sister organization. It's known as SIS. And is located in the UK. I'm pretty sure it's SIS. You can always try to figure this out, which means you're invested, which means you're involved, which means you're looking into these things and trying to prove that what I just told you is or not, or is in fact true. Pretend that everything I impart to you is bullshit. You should. And if you knock out a superficial Google search, that doesn't mean you looked into shit. That just means you're another superficial kid on the line. Doesn't count. Use your brain. All right, so it's modeled after a sister organization known as SIS and is located in the UK. The only reason it was established is to protect the interest of the central bank. The same applies to the CIA, but superficial internet babies don't have a clue. Understand, there is a great deal more to this that people also do not know. Take, for example, all the kids waxing poetic about voting. Voting promotes the Hegelian dialectic. I'm talking blue versus red, conquer and divide. I'm thinking for you because most people don't get this. A phony jurisdiction is in place to subjugate the masses, and most people reinforce this with, pins and other things and bumper stickers. I voted. In other words, they promote fascism and they're proud of it because they don't understand what they're up to. It's also a great example of the fact that everybody you're going to bump into in this life, unfortunately, was raised under the umbrella of indoctrination, which means they shop around propaganda. And they don't understand that. Everything they've ever been told, sold, and urged to repeat, by and large, is a pack of fucking lies. And the more I dig into things, the scarier it is, the more isolating it is. And I'm wandering around with a bunch of people who are fucking everything up. But they're patting each other on the ass and saying, we got this, because that's one of the slogans they were spoon-fed, and they're more than willing to repeat. Instead of thinking about what's happening. What the fuck is going on? And are you contributing to it? All right, where am I at? Not that you probably give a shit. Understand there's a great deal more to this that people also do not know. Take, for example, all the kids waxing poetic about voting. Voting promotes the Hegelian dialectic, a phony jurisdiction in place to subjugate the masses. They're promoting fascism, essentially smearing crap on the wall and asking others to repost what they got up to. It's a shitty analogy. You picking up what I'm putting down? The reason things are bad is because people don't have a goddamn clue what's going on. More importantly, you can't Google the answers, and if you try to Google the answers, Google's going to lie to you because we're using the DARPA internet, and Google is a tool of propaganda, and people don't understand this. I say DARPA internet often because it's flowery, and these days extra steps is what people have been trained to jump through in terms of hoops. And I've had people respond, what do you mean the DARPA internet? Well, it just so happens you could still use the DARPA internet as a fucking tool. And you could use the keywords to reason out why it's the DARPA internet. But out of all the kids, and technically there's I think 3 or 4 now, that have whined at me because they reacted, they didn't think, they reacted. None of them arrived at the answer. Not one of them. Not one of them. And that should terrify you, even though it's only 3 or 4 people, but most people don't know. And that should keep you up at night. I said, if you assume that the answers are popping up in your feed on social media, you're as gullible as the day is long, but most people assume as much. And I probably can't leave this on TikTok, which says more than anything, how should I put it? It sums up just how bad things are, just how far gone things are, just how misled people are, because most people assume TikTok is where you can go for answers. I was interacting with a girl yesterday. She has a lot of traction on there. So I challenged her and she responded to me. And so her excuse was, well, on YouTube, she claims that she's censored. Right? That's what she claims. But on TikTok, she's not. So I wrote her back today and told her, well, if you were shopping around answers to reality, free of propaganda, you would have no traction on either platform. And that's true. Unfortunately, the algorithm exclusively promotes propaganda now. What that means is freedom of speech no longer exists because people did the wrong thing and told each other, we got this. They're promoting fascism. They are not fighting for freedom of speech. They're not fighting for what reflects reality. They're repeating official narratives that were spoon-fed to them online. At the end of the day, that's one of the biggest reasons why things are so wildly out of fucking control right now. Because most people believe what they're being spoon-fed. And they're too afraid to rock the boat. They won't do it. So they march in lockstep with everybody else, and they repeat what everybody has been spoon-fed under the umbrella of indoctrination. In other words, if it's well-financed, well-circulated, it's normalized, which means you're probably familiar with it. And because you're familiar with it, you're more than willing to repeat it. You assume that it's true. Quantum theory is one of those things, in place to pave the way for a one-world religion. But most people, quantum physics is real, man. It's just as good as light having speed. It doesn't. Atoms don't exist. It's not based on replicable evidence-based research. This shit is based on popular opinion and hearsay, an official narrative. A paradigm, if you will. It's also known as a rabbit hole that goes nowhere, means nothing, and is fuck all. Now, what I said in this message today, I taught you something that you could look up, you could connect the dots, having to do with the SIS and the CIA. Most people don't know that. It's pretty superficial, but people don't know it. And it leads somewhere, having to do with the money, which is another reason why this will be censored. You could use that in a big fucking way to build up what's actually going on. Not, oh, it's BlackRock, oh, it's Vanguard. People were spoon-fed those narratives. That's the only reason you're even vaguely familiar with that shit. It's been well-financed, well-circulated, which means it's been normalized, which is why you're familiar with it. That's an example, by the way, of the bullshit that's taking place currently, and most people are catering to. They're circulating, they're promoting, they're propagating it. They're reposting it. They're regurgitating our master's propaganda. Just think about it. If most people are using the internet on social media on multiple platforms every single day, how much propaganda is actually being circulated? This is why you and I were given access to the DARPA internet in the first place, which was outlined in a Davos panel over 30 years ago, approximately. Each year, the Davos panel craps out a public transcript and tells us how they're going to infringe on what by all rights should be our rights. Every single year. They tell us what they're going to do, and you and I do nothing. We do the opposite of what we should do to reassure that if you have kids or you have family, little ones, that they're not going to be raised in a slave state, for the lack of better words, because currently we're debt slaves. Most people don't understand this. We became debt slaves back in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was established under the pretense of being both voluntary and temporary. The Federal Reserve has to do with that CIA, in case you don't understand. And we're working towards social credit slavery. If you've seen any of those blue check marks online where you got to get verified, that's one of the many steps of normalizing social credit slavery. How many people have paid for a little blue check mark or whatever the fuck it's called now? How many people bought into that? How many people are supporting AI? These are a couple examples. How many people have you used Bitcoin? Because if so, you're doing the wrong thing. I don't care what you assume. you're doing the wrong thing. Now let's dance it back for a second. How many of us use credit and debit cards? How many of us are slaves to the, system of usury, for the lack of better words? It affects you and I in equal measures. What matters is you try to do the right thing more often than not, and most people don't know which way's up. I guarantee it. If you hung out, thanks for hanging out. What the fuck do I know? I'm trying to help people, and I am censored on the DARPA internet.